Donovan Clingan is my favorite center in the 2024 NBA draft. This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break them down. Donovan Clingan is extremely productive when he's on the floor. In his sophomore season at UConn, he is averaging about 13 points, 7 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and a little over 2 blocks in only 22 minutes per game. But the thing that might make some people hesitant is that Clingan is yet to prove that he's durable. As a freshman at UConn, he played very much in a backup role. Clingan featured in just about 32% of the team's minutes. And then, this year, he's dealt with separate foot injuries as a sophomore, limiting his games and minutes. Still, there's no question that Clingan is going to be very useful finishing at the basket. The Huskies center has a big but mobile 7'2" frame. Clingan is able to play across the floor, not just rooted in the paint, and more importantly, he can play higher up. He had some mobility issues earlier in the season, but he looks much better now that he's healthier. Clingan can operate in early possessions, and he's able to play quickly. He has safe, big hands to secure passes, and then a real solid first and second jump to get up quickly off the floor. Again, we really have to factor in Clingan's size here. He's 7'2", and he has a decently quick pop off the ground. Clingan quickly secures passes and goes up to finish in one motion without giving defenses the chance to strip him. In the NBA, I expect that he'll look really good. He'll be able to catch passes thrown at him in all directions, and also catch lobs and finish impactfully above the basket. Clingan is a versatile roller who uses his body well. He takes up a lot of space, and he's able to roll out of handoffs, delay his dives, or adjust where he sets screens. This is a big difference between Clingan and someone like Zach Edey. Edey definitely dominates the college game, but the way that Clingan moves up and how he can play much earlier in the shot clock gives me more faith in his NBA projection. Clingan can rim run more often, and I think he has the edge and mobility for similarly massive frames. Clingan doesn't need as many touches in order to remain effective, so in other words, there will be less of an adjustment curve after he gets drafted. Right now, I have Clingan as a top 10 pick, with his size, production, and mobility as a play finisher. All of this extends to Clingan's rebounding. He's averaging about 7 a night as a sophomore, but that's because his minutes are limited. Clingan snatches down 13 rebounds per 40 minutes, although you cannot realistically factor him playing in so much right now. Still, I really like what he brings to the table on the boards. The UConn freshman has a big catch radius, and he's able to make multiple efforts with his massive frame. Clingan is mean and tough attacking the glass. Once he plants himself into position, defenders cannot move him around, so he'll just collect the rebound. Clingan is not necessarily explosive, but he's genuinely strong, and at the end of the day, he's just really large. All of this is bound to carry over into the NBA. Something else that separates Clingan from other big prospects in his draft class is his passing. Clingan averages more than 1.5 assists per game, and he barely turns the ball over. But what I like more is how UConn trusts their big man with the ball in his hand. Clingan is not just posting up deep and catching. He's able to move around the floor, and he's able to facilitate with handoffs, dribble handoffs, and screens. At times, these come from pretty high up the floor, so he's definitely being put in positions to make decisions. UConn gives Clingan the ball to create space for others, which shows this ability in the NBA as well. The Huskies center is comfortable with the ball in his hands, and he's safe receiving and delivering short pitch-offs. Down the line, I'm hoping we can see more of Clingan passing out of roles. The truth is, he'll likely be more of a scorer regardless, but for now, as a second-year young player, he's already shown enough upside here to make me feel pretty good about his passing. In terms of improvement points, it might be nitpicky, but I sort of wish that Clingan was even more dominant on the inside. Don't get me wrong, he is dependable and he projects well going into the NBA, but I do wish he was a bit more versatile. Working on some of his touch finishes or making sure that he's consistently punishing smaller defenders in the post will be important. Clingan is never going to need a high volume of touches to be impactful on offense, but this will help keep defenses honest if he can get his own bucket from time to time. Think of this a little bit like Steven Adams. Clingan can still improve at carving out angles for himself and making sure that he gets enough space to not be trapped under the basket. I think this is particularly important since Clingan's game is more so based on strength than it is on pop. I'm less interested in whether Clingan can shoot. This was a talking point coming into the season, but ultimately it's not just going to be his role, now or later. Clingan made 2 of his 6 threes as a sophomore, but are much more focused on his free throws and his shots that are not at the rim. Honing in on that first area, Clingan is shooting a disappointing 57% from the free throw line. The UConn big gets fouled often, so he definitely gets to the charity stripe, it's just that he's not converting enough. This really is going to be the shot that's vital for Clingan, because teams are almost always going to ask him to score at the basket. With his size there, as well as his rebounding and his capacity to play above the rim, Clingan is going to get fouled a lot, so these are the shots he has to make rather than stretching the floor. Donovan Clingan is also a very productive defender. Like on offense, we have to consider that his minutes on the court are limited, but Clingan makes a difference on defense when he's playing. He's quick off the floor with good hand placement, and he's real active with his length and size. Clingan moves well, and he excels at making himself huge with moving, backpedaling limbs that discourage passes and floaters. The Huskies' big is tough to get over or around if he's just hanging back at the rim, and partly that's how he's averaging more than 2 blocks per game. Along with that, we have to consider that Clingan is not a stiff who only stays buried inside the paint to make an impact. He can step outside a little bit, and as I've been saying, he's good at making himself huge while help assembles around him. Sure, Clingan will mostly be a drop defender, and it remains to be seen how many minutes he can play, but I don't see him as someone that teams are going to be able to target. Like with any 7+ footer though, Clingan will have to prove that he can make constant decisions at a high pace, and it typically takes NBA bigs at least a few years to become truly comfortable on this end of the floor. Diving into the pick and roll, Clingan's effectiveness here is largely through his size. He's a truly functional defender who takes away angles and passes well. Ball handlers find it hard to make decisions against him. Of course, it is fair to expect some more struggles against NBA spacing, as well as the pull-up ability of league guards, but I do feel like Clingan should be able to navigate what a league-level center has to do defensively. His tools exist, his activity level is decent, and his positioning is real solid. Plus, and I mentioned this on offense as well, I think he can defend early in the shot clock and with some encouraging mobility. I don't think Clingan is going to be an all-NBA defender, but he can most definitely be impactful both on and off the bench with his rim protection, pick and roll defense, and rebounding. Clingan's fouls are his biggest improvement point. To his credit, he's already gotten better at this from his freshman season, but he can still be foul prone, which of course does not help the overall question of how long he can last on the floor. Clingan is rash, and he commits fouls with his body. Long term, he'll need to be more patient on this end of the floor and realize that staying down and using his tools will be the best solution most of the time. The UConn center knows how to take away plays at the rim, so he shouldn't feel a need to chase plays. There are also some logical questions about how exactly he contributes in space. I think Clingan will be sturdy here, although not necessarily that dominant, so this limits him a bit, but I don't think it should do so excessively. Donovan Clingan is the #1 pure center in this draft class. He has the potential to be a big, no pun intended, two-way factor at the basket, finishing plays on both ends of the ball. And then he's also a solid decision maker who pitches in with some screening, rebounding, and even a little bit of passing. Defensively, Clingan is going to be impactful at the basket, and yes, there are questions in space, but for me, it's more so about how many minutes he'll be able to play. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Donovan Clingan, and if you enjoy the channel, if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.